So very good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world of wonderful amateur radio. Welcome to another edition of Something for the Weekend, brought to you by me, Martin, the Governor, getting older by the day and wheeled in because Tony, and in fact his co-op, Gary, went to Friedrichshafen, the ham show over in Friedrichshafen. They hold it every year. And went over there, and it's a right old jolly getting there by train and plane and bus and goodness knows what else. And after spending a couple of days there and coming back, they then come back and tell me that they've actually got COVID, which isn't very nice at all. So that's why I'm here. Anyway, I hope you're all having fun. Really bit reminiscing. My office is upstairs, and because I'm hardly ever here now, I wandered in this morning. Indeed, my youngest son Henry was in there as well. And we're going through boxes of stuff, you know. And in fact, there's so much stuff, it's unbelievable, including lots of these. These are newsletters that I used to produce for various reasons. A printer used to be bang opposite my old shop at 286 Northfields Avenue. And I got very friendly with Dave of Polyprint. He used to do all the printing for me when we used to have printed letterheads and invoice books, and my God, the game's changed so much in 34 years. Yeah, 34 years of continuous trading. Others purport to be going a lot longer, but they haven't even got a shop anymore, which is rather bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, so getting back to this, and I'm looking through these, the drivel that I used to write, for example, in 1993, when in fact Kenwood, who bought out a TS50, there, I've got to get on my little phone here, bought out a TS50 in 1993, and it was a remarkable 100-watt HF rig. Hands up of those of you in the comments that bought a TS50S, or even remember it, and not quite sure what they did after that. They certainly didn't bring a successor out to it, with Alinco bringing out the DX70, Icom at the same time bringing out an IC706. In fact, about a year later, Yaesu with an FT100, and so on and so forth. I think the only people that are really left with a small mobile transceiver are Yaesu, and in fact Icom, but Kenwood unfortunately are certainly not. So it was interesting to see the TS50. Indeed, if I open it up, I even waffle on about my Supervan 3 by Reliant that actually was traded into me. I vaguely seem to remember it was for something worth £100, and we pretended that it was a rapid delivery vehicle. Of course, it was anything but, although it was probably a little bit faster than the Renault Twizy I was buzzing around in a few years ago when I lived in Surrey and London area. So that was the, you see that there? It's good fun actually. It costs more to sign write it because that's actually hand sign written. Don't do it these days, it's all sticky transfers and things, isn't it? But it was sign written by Rocket Ron, his name was. Good old London name. Whether Ron is still with us now, I don't know. I also see in the 1993 newsletter that Henry Lewis, G3 GIQ, did a review of an IC737. And that was on that page. Any of you got this lying around somewhere? Very much doubt it. Should think it makes a great budgie cage tray at the bottom. But Henry did a review of of the IC737, which was very popular, and he actually gave it a very, very good review. Henry, of course, was a very prominent HFDXer in the world. In fact, one of the top HFDXers, along with a handful of very few select bunch in the UK. Unfortunately, Henry died, and I think it was about 2011, so he's been gone a fair old time now. And indeed, my son Henry is named after him. Talking of Henry, before we move on, I've got a logbook here. I did tell you I've been going through lots and lots of boxes in my office. And when Henry passed away, I was given the task of clearing all his house out and all the rest of it. He actually moved down to Bideford in Devon for a very short period, and then he became seriously ill, which rather amusingly is where I live. How odd's that? God knows how many years later. This logbook goes back to 1953, which is 3 years before I was even born. And I can see lots of call signs. He was a big DX. If I look through my logbooks go back to 1969 and 1970. I thought that was a long time ago. Henry completely beats me. VE4s, ZS6s, these are all on 20 metres. All CW is a very, very good CW operator. I'm trying to see if there's any G call signs in here. Oh, JSW, don't suppose he's still around. Most of them are VEs, Canadians, and Ws. VS2, CP, just endless. So lots and lots of history there with old Henry. I also noticed in one of my newsletters, now whizzing on to 2002, which is that one. Comments in the down below if you've got this one, where we mentioned, or at least I mentioned, a Yaesu FT1000 field, Mark V field, which is the 100-watt version. That was £2,000, and indeed over in our 40 finds we have got an FT1000 Mark V field for considerably less than that. But imagine if it was a piece of I don't know, Sony or Sanyo hi-fi, the same vintage. A, it wouldn't even be over there, and B, it certainly wouldn't be worth 600 odd quid. So amateur radio is still a good investment in comparison to most other electronics. The only minus these days is when the equipment gets that much older, parts are very, very difficult to get hold of, which is a shame. But there's always a market for it, which again is why our 40 finds are expanding. We've also got a slight mix on 40 finds where we're putting kit which is all complete, where we have very briefly tested it and establishes that it turns itself on, it receives, transmits, and the display. They're a little bit more money, but you still have to come to the store to purchase. We won't mail order it, and the warranty is extremely limited. I test it if you want to whilst you're in here and see if you like it. What else is new? Pocket directories. I spent so long getting this together. I bet some of you still got this, page after page after page. I actually employed somebody to do this for me, and he worked on site for nearly a week getting that together. Cost me an absolute fortune. We handed out hundreds and hundreds, and probably a couple of thousand. I think it was at Granby Halls or certainly one of the big shows, and we did very well out of it. And I remember seeing people walking around with this in their pocket for years afterwards. Why don't I do it now? Because it's out of date pretty well immediately, and to be frank with you, printing is so expensive. Again, another way that things have changed, like all the exhibitions and rallies, as we call them in the amateur radio trade. 27 a year we were doing, pretty well every other week. Myself and Chris used to get up at the crack of dawn, haul all the gear all over the country, trade all day, get back. We had to unload it because where I lived I didn't have a car park or a garage, to get it in the shop at about 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night and then go home. Those were the days, eh? Thank goodness they're all behind me. Very few rallies now. That's, people say to me, why don't you still do all the rallies? Unfortunately there isn't the money in it, and I've got more of a life now, even more so because I'm retired. VX7, now there's a little radio for those of you that remember the Yaesu VX7. Beautifully engineered again. This was the successor to the VX5, and sure enough in one of these is a VX7 on the front page, and I think there's a price there of 329 quid, and that was for just 2 70 sems. No GPRS, no nothing, absolutely nothing. A bog standard 2 70 sem transceiver for 329, and that was in 2002. So 22 years later, you're going to pay far less than that for a lot more. So 20 years later, you're going to get a lot more for far less. Just shows you how prices have changed over the period of time. Used to print out second-hand lists. The elite second-hand list at Pickett's Lock. There you go. I'm not sure the date on that. There probably is a date on it. Let's have a look. There's a date inside. It'd have been out of date immediately. In fact, there's no date on it. But to give you an idea, the phone number is 081 566 1120, our old London number. And I've even printed my mobile number. And yes, I used to get phone calls on Christmas Day. And rather amusingly, that mobile number is now my Henry's, because I passed on the mobile number. But look, there's pages and pages of second-hand kit. Why don't we do it anymore? It's all on the web. The stuff comes in and goes out so quickly. By the time that's printed, it's completely out of date. But that's again how things have changed. What a shame I didn't put a date on that. It's got the old logo as well. That logo was the first logo that Steve, who still does all my artwork 34 years later, I said, where did you get the inspiration from, Steve? He says, he was sitting there having breakfast and his missus opened a tin of Heinz baked beans. I suppose you can see that with the arch. Rather odd. So that's something else we don't bother anymore with. So much has changed over the years. Absolutely endless. Obviously all the equipment has. I like it when all the old gear still comes in. Unfortunately it doesn't make it to our used shelves. It ends up in 40 fines purely because of the warranty aspect. We just can't guarantee something that's 20, 30, 40 years old. But I still like having it in the shop, and it's still great seeing you come in and grab it. In fact, we're going to have a quick walk round now the 40 fines and just show you what we've got as of this Friday in July. So let's wander over there and have a quick look. So we've moved over to the 40 fines and look at this, a 101B. It's not a 101E or an EX or a Z or a ZD. It's a 101B. These were out in the 70s, and I remember one evening sitting next to Rowley Shears, the owner and founder of KW Electronics. Comments in the comments down below who remembers KW. I'm sure you've got a bit of KW kit in your shack, and if you haven't, I bet you have seen some. And I asked Rowley, why, I was so keen back in the early 90s and late 80s, why don't you make amateur radio anymore? He said, simple. He said, the FT101. And here it is. And I remember him saying to me, he couldn't manufacture that for the price that Yaesu were selling it for through their dealers. And that was one part of the equation. The other part was this offered so much more in respect to features of an early HF transceiver. So we've got this at 199 quid. It's got all the cables, the DC cable, the mains cable, the microphone. I can't remember the last time I saw a YC601B, the digital display. It doesn't work. It turns on, but it makes a buzzing noise. I could stick that in the workshop, and after a day the guys have sorted it, but I couldn't sell it for the price, and then I still couldn't warranty it. So if you want one that's in really, really nice condition physically, which to be honest with you is one of the most important things. I mean, the epicyclic drive still feels nice. You know, this is going back many years. When I was working for Bernie and Brenda, I just used to earn money at Bernie and Brenda's and give it all back to him at the end of the month, because I used to go out with loads of equipment. Again, FRG7, the Barlow Wadley loop receiver. Told you little stories about these before. Sale for 149 quid. That's the first thing I do, is clean the volume control. But it seems to lock, so obviously the Wadley loop design is still working. You actually tune that so it goes off. So you tune what frequency or what band you want, as there's 14 megs. Wait for the light to go out. Pre-select this till you hear the noise increase and you're off receiving. So that's a nice machine. These are really rare. Can't remember the last time I saw one. FT7B. This is the 50 watt version of the FT7, which was 10 watts with a matching power supply and the matching YC78. That's up at 250. An old IC451E, the 10 watt multi-mode at 200 quid. and a 251E that doesn't work at all for considerably less. So those have come in over the last couple of weeks. We did a quick 1-minute video on those, I seem to remember. And there's the FT 1000MP Mark V fill that I was promoting in 2002 for 2,000 quid. This is in 40 fines. It has been tested, it does work, but you've still got to come into the shop. And if you want the guys to take this off here, stick it over there on an antenna, plug it in and make sure you're happy with it, you can walk away with it for £6.99 or make us an offer. So you will see kit creeping into here. You think, that's funny, that should be over there, but we just can't warrant it for any length of time. We're still looking for second-hand gear. In fact, we've got lots of second-hand gear over there, but we want more. We're still paying top prices. If you got the original box and packing, just tell our guys that you want it collected. We'll remote collect the equipment from you. No, it's not an individual man with a van. Unless you've got a truckload, then we will send a man with a van out to pick it all up for you, from you. DPD or one of the others will knock on your door, get it back here within a few days, goes upstairs, checked, and then we send you payment by backs, or you can trade it in or part trade it in, whatever you want to do. So if you've got used equipment lying around, please bring it in. Finally, remember we're open 6 days a week. That means all day Saturday 9 till 4:30. The guys do have lunch. You'll see them wandering around with sandwiches in the sales office, but just come in, have a cup of coffee and stay as long as you like. You've seen the size of the showroom, it's huge and it's still air conditioned. I think that's all really, that's enough for now. A bit of history. One more thing that if you haven't got one of these in the shack, why not? And that's our 2 clocks. And I love these clocks, so much so that I nicked one of those from stock last week. And when I get back to sunny Devon, that'll be in there. Internal temperature, month, day, we haven't set this up yet. This is actually set up. It comes with a little remote control even. So there you go. You can tell we're doing it on Wednesday. A bit of a giveaway really. Under 30 quid. Look at that. You've got to have one of those, haven't you? Do like that. Loads of great big long length of wire so you can hang it on the wall and get it plugged in. That's all for now. Have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully Tony will be back next week with some more stories of what he did at Friedrichshafen and why. That's all for now. Ta-ra.